Florida. Upcoming now, the International Players Tennis Championships, and we'll be taking a look at the women's final. And quite a contrast, the established superstar who lives here in Boca Raton, Chris Evert Lloyd, seeks her 144th professional championship against the rising young star. The two making their entrance into the stadium right now. Steffi Graf, just 16 years old, seeded second in this tournament, so the women have very much gone according to form. Chris Evert Lloyd against Steffi Graf on an almost oppressively hot afternoon. The court temperature 92 degrees, the air temperature in the mid-80s. The International Players Tennis Championships coming up. Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels, and welcome to a great weekend of tennis here on ABC. The women's final coming up with Chris Evert Lloyd taking on Steffi Graf very shortly, and then tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern Time, best of five for the men's championship to conclude this two-week-long event in South Florida as #1 seeded and #1 ranked Yvonne Lindell tries to stay hot against the second seed, Mats Wilander. That's all upcoming, but everything upcoming has been overshadowed by what took place yesterday. Jimmy Connors has been at the eye of several storms in his long and distinguished tennis career, but yesterday he went through a situation that will be forever ingrained in the minds of those who saw it. And I know many of you have not only read about it, but seen what took place on your late local news last night. So to review, with Yvonne Lindell leading yesterday in the fifth and concluding set, 3-2, and 30 love, Lindell serving here. And this turned out to be the final point of the match. That backhand volley by Lindell. Connors thought it was out. It was not called out. It became 40 love, and Connors exploded. Immediately went to the chair, berated Jeremy Shales. And as we take a look at the replay, as is the case with so many replays in tennis, especially on baseline shots, completely inconclusive. Very close, obviously, in or out, who knows to this point. But Connors...
Delay of game, point, Mr. Connors.
Assessed the delay of game penalty there to make it 4-2. Subsequently, Shales made it 5-2, and then made the announcement that concluded the match.
Game, set, and match, Lindell by default.
So Connors left, Lindell advanced to the finals, and after the incident, here's what the principals had to say.
I felt like that I was sticking up for my rights out there. I had enough. Had enough of that stuff going on out there. You know, I mean, if a guy's in the chair and the guy can't see, he's got that job to do, and he doesn't do it right, after 3 hours and 45 minutes of nonstop action out there that I'm giving and Lindell's giving, and then I've got to take a screw in like that. I don't put up with that anymore, no longer.
It's, you know, nothing I could do about it, and I think the umpire lost control of the match, and but at the same time, I don't feel that any professional should get himself defaulted over a bad call.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that the umpire was handling correctly, and we just had to go through the proper procedures. Whether Jimmy wanted to back off and play or have a confrontation, which he did, it was unfortunate. And he elected to not play, so we had no choice but to default him.
Per usual, Arthur Ashe is here to provide commentary for us this weekend. You have spent your whole life in and around this sport. What did you think of yesterday's incident?
Well, I think it was unfortunate for the sport and for the viewers and the fans here that the match was not taken to its conclusion. But I think what actually happened at the end was correct as far as the procedures were concerned, and I think tennis was well served for basically 3 reasons. I think the players, some of whom came up to me afterwards and said, you know, it's about time the rules were enforced. And funny enough, Connors, in a column in Tennis Magazine 3 months ago, said that there were 2 sets of rules in effect, one for the top players like himself and one for the rest of the players. So he was actually a victim of his own pronouncements. And secondly, I think tennis, which has been criticized for not being strict enough with the rule enforcement, yesterday showed that it would stick up for its own rules. I think thirdly, and something we worry about across American tennis now, and indeed possibly across the world, is that juniors watching this match will be put on notice that that's not going to be tolerated if they become professional players.
All right, we'll talk about it during the course of the match, but with the women's match imminent, let me turn now to Pam Shriver, who will be with us providing commentary during today's matchup between Chris Evert Lloyd and Steffi Graf. What does Steffi Graf have to do to win today?
Well, Steffi Graf has the most explosive forehand in women's tennis right now, and she's going to have to use that today a lot to hurt Chris Evert. Now, she's also going to have to mix up the odd drop shot, come to net every once in a while. Chris is most comfortable at the back of the court, and if Steffi stays back there all day long, she's going to be in a bit of trouble. But I think Steffi's going to play a very fine match today.
By the way, we should mention Martina Navratilova did not enter this tournament, so Chris was ranked #1. At the age of 31, some think she's going downhill. Is she any more vulnerable to you now than she's been in the past?
No, the desire is in Chris Evert Lloyd all the time, and some of us wish it wasn't, but she's an incredible force. She's been #1 or #2 in the world for the past 12 years, and she doesn't look to be changing that.
Let's take a look right now at the two who will meet for a big purse, $112,500 to the winner. Chris Evert Lloyd can stay at home because she lives here in Boca Raton. Now 31 years old, seeded first. The world ranking, of course, is second only to Navratilova. And she's had a pretty easy time of it along the way. She has not lost a set. There were the results through the first 4 rounds of this 2-week-long tournament. She beat Terry Phelps 6-2, 6-love in the quarterfinals, then went to a tiebreak to beat Kathy Rinaldi the other night in the first set before sweeping her away 6-1 in the second set. And meanwhile, Steffi Graf of West Germany, who won that Olympic tennis tournament, of course, as an amateur. We mentioned she has not won a professional tournament as yet at the age of 16, seeded second. Her world ranking, oddly enough, coming out this week, 6th. At the beginning of this tournament, she was ranked 4th, so she'll be back up there again. And there is her road. She lost the first set that she played in this tournament, 1-6 to Melissa Gurney, but then beat Foltz, Gomer, and Moulton in the 4th round, and then proceeding onward, defeated Zina Garrison in a 3-set quarterfinal match, and then Helena Sukova 6-2, 6-1 in a semifinal match, in which, following that match, Steffi Graf said, "That's as good as I can play. That's the best I've played ever." Fran McDowell is the umpire, and that was a very hot seat yesterday for the Connors-Lendl match. And again, Lendl will be taking on Mats Wilander in the final tomorrow of the men's tournament, which you will be seeing at 1:30 Eastern time here on ABC, as we get set for Chris Evert Lloyd, who was the runner-up in this tournament last year, losing in the final to Martina Navratilova, trying to win her 144th championship. And there is how they have fared head-to-head, Pam.
Well, they played 2 weeks ago in the finals of the Virginia Slims of Florida, and it was a close first set. It was 3-all in the first set, and then there was a bad call, evidently, and Steffi got a little bit upset. Now, whether or not Steffi will play a mature match today or not, we'll see. But she definitely has the equipment to worry Chris. I talked to Chris in the locker room about an hour and a half ago, and Chris definitely felt under pressure in that tournament 2 weeks ago. But she said she played great tennis, and she's looking forward to a good match today.
So here we go. Hot, blazing sun. Court temperature in the 90s. First game of the best of 3. And low 15.
It'll be important in the first game for Steffi Graf to hit a few balls and not to go for too much too soon. It's very important to at least feel into the match after a couple of games with Chris.
Evert Lloyd is so tough to beat anywhere, of course, Pam. Is she any tougher at home?
Well, South Florida has been very good to her throughout her career, and I'm sure she's played more tennis in these conditions than the rest of us have in our whole lives anywhere else.
So right off the bat, 3 break points here.
And that backhand looked as though Steffi did not want to really commit herself. She could have gotten to it, but she took one step too few to get to it. Yes, there's that big forehand. It's obvious that Chris wants to play Steffi's backhand. Is that true, Karen?
Definitely, and I think we're gonna see her stepping into the backhand side of the court and moving around to hit as many forehands as possible. But Chris will be able to punish Steffi's backhand because she's got that tremendous cross-court two-handed backhand.
So it begins with a break for Chris Evert Lloyd in quest of the International Players Tennis Championship title in the 2nd year of this tournament in Florida. We'll be back.
The Lipton International Players Tennis Championships are being brought to you by Lipton Hearty Soups, the soups that make winter a warm and wonderful place to be. By Shearson Lehman Brothers, Minds Over Money. By the Sperry Corporation. And by Lipton Decaffeinated Tea Bags, delicious and decaffeinated just for you.
Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for me.
Lipton, you made decaffeinated delicious, just for me.
Hey, Lipton, you made decaffeinated, just for me.
Great tasting Lipton decaffeinated tea. Real Lipton tea, delicious and decaffeinated, just for you.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated, just for us.
This winter, escape. Come to where you can bask in the warmth that winter makes you hungry for. Where the pleasure is so real, you can taste it. Come to Lipton Hearty Soups. Great tasting getaways where you can wrap your winter appetite in extra hearty noodles. Dive into rich, thick broth. Luxuriate in the great taste of Lipton.
This hearty soup is just a ticket.
Come to where it's warm and wonderful. Come to Lipton Hearty Soups.
Chris Evert Lloyd serving 2nd game. The 1,201st match of her career. Significant to note, we saw that graphic, of those 1,200 career matches, Chris has won 1,095. And even Tommy Lasorda would be happy with that percentage.
Earl Weaver would be happy with that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was close.
Let's see if Chris will pack up and leave. Huh? That time we saw Steffi Graf take one of Chris's serves and pound it very hard, and it forced the error from Chris. And Steffi's going to need to do that throughout the match because Chris can start to double fault if she feels a great deal of pressure with the receiver.
Is there any chance at all of Chris serving and volleying against Steffi? Are we going to see that today?
Arthur, don't hold your breath. I don't think so. Chris, I've seen her be up matches 6-1, 5-love, 40-love, and she still does what she does best, which is stay at the back of the court.
When's the last time she played even half of a serve and volley game in a match?
Well, Chris has never served and volleyed. She'll serve and approach every once in a while.
15-40 in the second game.
You take another look at that backhand cross court, which she hits so well with two hands. Using two hands, she's able to catch it early, a bit earlier than someone, say, with one hand. And it was an unreturnable 15-40 rather, second game, first set. Oh, caught Steph leaning the other way.
These are the points that are so important when you play against Chris. Steffi's, this is her third break point this game. She's already down a break. She needs to get back at 1-all.
She does.
That was a nervous-looking backhand. That looked like she was sort of trying to pray it over.
I don't quite understand why Chris would want to change directions, go up the line with her two-handed backhand, which is not her favorite shot. Plus, it goes down the line to Steffi Graf's forehand, which is her big weapon. Maybe Chris is a little nervous.
Yes, it looked nervous. And she may have changed her mind in the middle of the swing.
So we start with a couple of breaks, 1-1. Best of three, women's final.
I'm not sure if you were there, but when Chris played Tracy Austin for the first time in the center court at Wimbledon, that was another nervous time for her. Were you there at that time by any chance?
No, I started playing in '78. That was in '77.
All of us men players wanted to watch that because Tracy was up and coming, just like Steffi Graf. Obviously, Chris had already made her reputation, and we sort of felt that, take a peek at Dandy Don there, that she would be a little nervous, and she was, humanly so. Now, I'm surprised that Steffi didn't try to go for that shot.
15-30.
She could have gotten to it had she stretched it. You watch Chris come to that on a cross-court forehand. Chris makes a diving backhand volley cross-court for a winner, which looks like Steffi could have gotten to it had she tried a bit harder. That is a big forehand.
It is a big one. I saw it 3 times last year in matches.
Boris Becker's got a big forehand. Maybe the Germans are just coming up with producing big forehands these days.
I think I'll go there and live for a while.
Becker was in this tournament, but was out early.
He lost to a 6'8" Czech boy. Man-child.
Oh, that ball was good. Ooh, that looked
good. So 2-1 in the first set. Graf will head.
Consistency. Consistency is unimpressed with a single success. It confers medals only upon those who burn brightly with the repetition of achievement. It is more than a promise. It is performance over time. Consistency means never resting on your laurels, never taking your talent for granted. Consistency is the visible proof that we are as good as we think we are. Shearson Lehman Brothers, minds over money.
Who says you can't have 100% imported hops and a less filling beer? Old world aging and a less filling beer. Smooth super premium taste and a less filling beer. Michelob Light, the best of both worlds.
Michelob Light, oh yes you can. Have it all.
Presenting the delicately seasoned taste of Lipton noodles and sauce Alfredo. Delicately prepared for you by Lipton. sauce Alfredo, one of the Lipton side dishes with that delicately seasoned taste.
Chris Evert Lloyd to serve now in the fourth game of the first set, best of three women's final. International Players Tennis Championships, $112,500 to the winner. And a little bit more than $56,000 to the runner-up. Breeze has picked up, and that's helpful on a hot day in Florida.
Love 15. If Chris is vulnerable, it's early on in a match. This whole tournament, she struggled in the first set. I believe she's lost 26 games in the first sets of her matches versus only 8 in the second set. So Steffi is into the match now, leading 2-1, and Chris now needs to pick up and quit making some mistakes that are uncharacteristic.
Took advantage of that forehand down the line. She came in, not fully expecting exactly where the ball was going to go, but she did come in, picked the ball off and overhead, hit it cross court to Chrissy's forehand and unreturnable. Love 30.
Love 40 now, and Graf has never won a set from Chris Evert Lloyd. We showed you head-to-head the 5 times Chris has won, and in straight sets on each occasion. And right now, another triple break point for Steffi Graf.
Chris is really struggling on serve. She's only won 2 points in her service game so far. Maybe this forehand of Steffi Graf's is on Chris's mind.
Game Graf. She leads 3-1.
And you mentioned before that you wouldn't be surprised to see Chris double faulting if she begins to think about Graf's forehand.
Well, the times that I play Chris, I try and come to net behind Chris's second serve, and when I do it effectively, she can throw in double faults. But of course, Steffi Graf won't be coming to net behind Chris's second serve, but she certainly can punish the ball.
His husband, John Lloyd, looking on. The door is now open for Steffi Graf in this first set. If I'd have asked you in the scene set, Pam, Steffi Graf has one chance in how many to beat Chris, what would you have said?
Today, I'd say 1 in 3, 1 in 4.
Mm-hmm. Now that you've seen her in action, would you give her a better chance?
Well, it's so difficult because Chris can wear down opponents. Even if Steffi can win this first set, she's still got to play a terrific second or third set, and with the heat and all, Chris is very much used to these conditions.
I agree. Seen her down so many times against players like Steffi Graf. She came back, although she did slip a couple times last year. Lost the final to Sina Garrison.
Beautiful.
Beautiful pass. Steffi should have been there. At least she was leaning to that side, but not enough.
15-30.
You watch that beautiful passing shot again. Plants that right foot. Pushes off down the line for a winner.
I have nightmares about that two-handed shot.
Just back.
30 all.
Well, that time, Steffi Graf took a backhand and for the first time hit over the ball, hit the ball flat, drove it cross court, and that set up a couple of more big forehands. So Steffi's obviously feeling very confident here.
serving at 40-30.
Is there a book on, sorry, Al, is there a book on Chris Evert Lloyd, Pam?
Well, the book is not to miss too much, to serve well. For me, it's to serve and volley as well as I can, but for Steffi Graf, it's totally different.
But the players who have the best chance of beating a Chris Evert Lloyd are players like yourself, possibly, obviously Martina, Hannah Manlikova, who are very talented, hit the ball with one hand off the backhand, have an all-court game, and are aggressive.
That's right. It's very difficult to beat Chris from the back of the court.
Pam Shriver, who is currently ranked 5th in the world, joining us with the commentary today.
Your basic practice routine. I think it was important for Chris to win that because that's her game. And if she outlasts Steffi Graf playing like that, it's like saying to Steffi, look, I'm better than you are at this type of play.
Chris had to hit a tremendous shot to win that point. Her shot looked like it landed right on the baseline, and Steffi gave a little bit of a look as if she wanted to hear an out call. So Chris with a break-back point.
That was wild.
She had a chance to bring it back to deuce, but instead Chris breaks back, and it's 3-2 Graf.
Graf leads 3-2.
Here comes cup of soup.
Nobody makes soup in a cup like Lipton cup of soup. It's good. Nobody makes soup in a cup like Lipton.
Lipton cup of soup. Zesty, hearty, perfectly seasoned. Anytime, any place.
Chicken noodle. Leave it to Mom.
Nobody makes soup in a cup like Lipton. Puts a smile on your face. Cup of soup.
Beijing. When the sun rises here, it will also rise in Mexico and Morocco. This is Epcot Center. And like the real world, it wouldn't wake up without Sperry computers. At Disney, fantasy is a very real business. And everything that helps management run the business runs on Sperry systems. Mickey Mouse is no fool.
A serious player has a look all his own. The Lendl Collection. Only from Adidas.
Well, our man about the grounds this weekend is Al Troutwig.
All right, Al, I'm in row 6 with John Lloyd, who, of course, is watching with great interest. John, we've watched a powerful forehand from Steffi and maybe a little bit of a slow start from Chris. What else should we be talking about this match?
Well, I think the way Steffi's playing at the moment, she's really going for broke, hitting a lot of flat shots and dominating the points from the beginning. I think Chris has got to somehow slow her up a little bit and make a few more errors. At the moment, Steffi's taking command of the match and is very confident. Somehow she's got to slow her up and play a few more slower balls and change the pace a little bit.
Okay. Al, John also told me that Chris did not seem very nervous before the match, maybe just a tad edgy. Thank you.
Interesting comments by John Lloyd.
But I don't think, in all honesty, Al, that John's going to betray any nervousness on the part of his wife.
Nope. And even though he may feel that Steffi's dominating, we're even. We're on serve anyway.
Well, Chris again is struggling in a first set of one of her matches, and I can't really think of a good reason why. She certainly isn't nervous when she starts these matches. Maybe she just wears down her opponent, finds a groove midway through the first set.
Perfect case in point would be the other night of the semis with Kathy Rinaldi. Went to a tiebreaker, and Chris won the tiebreaker 8-6, and then steamrolled Rinaldi in the second set 6-1.
Does her game remind you of Virginia Wade's, Steffi Graf's fan?
A little bit on maybe the slice backhand side, but certainly Steffi
hits the forehand harder.
A lot harder. Also,
yes.
Virginia had a big serve and liked to volley a lot more.
I think as Steffi gets older, she may incorporate that into her game.
Well,
she certainly has the skills to do it.
Sure, she got to the finals of the mixed doubles here.
Graf ahead 3-2, but Evert serving here 40-30. Chance to square things at 3 games apiece in the first set.
That was out.
Game, Everett Lloyd, 3-all.
One hears a lot about the rate of injury to young female players, especially when they're coming onto the tour playing so much, but we haven't heard too much about any injuries from Steffi. Is she just an exception?
Well, actually, about 2 years ago down in Australia, she had her first serious injury. She fell and broke her thumb, or dislocated her thumb, but she's been playing pretty smartly. She's only played 12 tournaments in the last year, so they're not overplaying her.
Ooh, what a passing shot. And you predicted that she would try some of those before. So we took another look at that backhand drop shot by Steffi Graf down the line. Chris comes to it, just barely gets it over. Steffi now can do one of 3 things. Down the line, cross-court or lob. She likes to go cross-court for a winner. 15 love.
Evert Lloyd shots hugged the lines that time.
I've got to think that in those backhand-to-backhand duels, Chris is going to win most of them, basically because she's hitting the ball flat, and Steffi's hitting it with slice. And Chris is just so much better at that. Chris is actually penetrating, hitting the ball much harder than Steffi, who's just, as I said, slicing it. When the ball hits ground, it sort of stands up a bit.
See, Stephanie's taking her time here. Usually she plays very quickly, and now she's taking a little bit more time. Maybe she's a little tired.
Didn't have that racket head ready. So important when you're coming up for an approach shot to have the racket head correct.
30.
There's Butch Buchholz, the chairman of this tournament, who's sitting next to Philippe Chatrier, former chairman of the International Tennis Federation, now head of the French Tennis Association. Oh, what a shot. Half volley, cross court for a winner.
Think about Stephanie and her forehand. She has such a quick swing that you cannot pick up the direction. Just look at the racket head, how quickly it goes through the ball here. And Chris would have no idea whether that was going up the line or cross court.
Oh, what a shot.
40-30.
That's what she's waiting for in those baseline duels, to get a short ball so she can run around her backhand and do exactly that.
40-30. Graf's done very well to win the last 2 points. The tide had started to go back into Chris's favor. Graf was up 3-1 and got back to 3-all, and Chris was up 15-30 this game, but now Steffi's got a game point to go ahead 4-3 in the first set.
And she leads 4-3. Evert Lloyd has not lost a set, by the way, since December 7th last year, losing to Martina Navratilova in Australia.
Tonight is special. Lipton brings you special moments, an enchanting herbal tea. Chamomile, fruits, spearmint, blended for a taste like no other herbal tea. Special moments, one of the very special teas from Lipton.
You are what you eat, so you better eat light. Wishbone Light. It's light on oil, but with a full, fresh taste. You are what you eat, so you better eat light. Wishbone Light.
You'd never expect to catch a fish in downtown Austin. Yet that's the reason people come to the Austin Angler, one of the few places in Texas you can get a custom-made split bamboo fly rod and a fresh-tied woolly one to go on the end. So if you go there, remember, keep your rod tip up and put your Visa card down. Because at the Angler, they don't take fishing lightly, and they don't take American Express. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
When a road is slippery, braking your car can cause skidding or worse. Now, Tevis, an ITT company, has an anti-lock brake system to help keep your car under control. A built-in computer senses the road and brakes the wheels without locking. This ITT Tevis system is available on some American cars now, and none too soon.
Quiet, please.
Pete Weber, son of Dick, and from St. Louis, has made it to the round of 5, and you'll see the Professional Bowlers Tour St. Louis Open coming up next. Pete Weber in the finals. The PBT getting underway at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Chris Evert Lloyd serving in the 8th game of the first set.
Low 15.
We'll see if Stephanie continues to go for broke. This is the important game. If she breaks here, she can serve for the first set. But that was a great shot. It was a wonderful try. She missed it. She shouldn't be discouraged about it.
I agree. Yes, it was worth taking a chance. Do you think it's an accident that West Germany has produced 2 very good players and very young players all of a sudden at one time?
In Boris Becker and
Steffi Graf?
And then,
is that an accident?
I don't think so. The women have been very strong for a long time. Sylvia Hanukkah, if you remember, beat Martina Navratilova in our winter championships a couple years ago, and now Claudia Kota-Kilsch is ranked number 4 or 5 in the world.
Deep 40-15.
A loose error. Of course, there are quite a few players from all over Europe popping up, just as the one that Boris Becker lost to last week. Milan Shriver, 6'8". Biggest serve in tennis, possibly, right now.
Once again, we're going to see Steffi Graf's big weapon. She hits a topspin and just flicks that wrist over the ball.
Well, that's where Martina gets her also, although Martina uses her left-handed forehand cross-court, but just to catch Chris having hit that two-handed shot where she just cannot reach as far.
Chris has such tremendous footwork, and whenever I see Chris not in position for a shot, I say one thing. That shot was hit very hard and very well, because Chris is always there in the right spot.
Then, too, Steffi's forehand is hit with a continental grip, which allows you to disguise the ball at the last minute. She can flick the ball at the last minute because she does use that grip. I'm surprised she's able to hit the ball as hard with that grip, because most people who try, it's much weaker than an Eastern.
Even now at 4 games apiece in this best-of-3 women's final. Again tomorrow.
Games are 4-all.
It will be Yvonne Lendl, number 1 in the world, against Mats Wilander in the best-of-5 men's final.
Oh, what a shot.
You heard Chris say, yeah, right? As soon as she saw the ball come off Steffi's racket, she knew she wasn't getting anywhere close to that.
Well, very few players, men or women, would want to run around and hit forehands like that all the time. Of course, that's their biggest weapon. Jimmy Arias, Aaron Krickstein. There she is running around her backhand again to hit the forehand volley out of the air, down the line. Chris went the other way, by the way, thinking she was going to go cross-court.
At that point, you got to guess somewhere.
Yeah,
I guess.
Sure. But I think Chris did the right thing.
Sure.
You guess first and make your opponent go the other way if possible, but it just didn't work in that instance.
she was going to hit a drop
30-15.
shot.
Steffi's still not comfortable around the net, and she shouldn't get discouraged when she misses those shots. I feel like she's a little timid. She doesn't want to do it. We saw her miss an overhead on a big point earlier in this set. Heck, if she ever develops a tremendous net game,
Watch out.
Arthur.
It's all go home. Well, she's a wave of the future. Play all over the court. She's learning.
We can see what her physical skills are here today. Does she, though, can you tell at the age of 16, does she have the temperament and the will to make it to the top and stay there?
She's very much a hard worker. She has been off the tour since late October. She took the time off to build some strength and take some time off, maybe go to school. I think she does have all the abilities to become a top 1, top 2 player, possibly a couple years down the line.
And we've already seen what the pressures of being number 1 at such an early age can do. It's an awesome responsibility, being number 1 in a world sport like tennis, unlike, say, basketball or baseball, or even football, which are predominantly American sports.
Here's a big point. Chris has a break point to lead 5-4.
Graf gets it back to deuce.
Is Chris a step slower?
No, believe me.
Oh, well, we haven't talked about that. I was just wondering if, at 31 now, if she were a half a step slower, because that's what they say. The players say that about Connors, that he is a half a step slower than he was. Although he certainly didn't look like it yesterday.
And again, Evert Floyd with a break point.
Steffi every once in a while gets caught when Chris pounds a double-fisted backhand to Steffi's slice backhand. She doesn't get her racket down head quite early enough.
Evert Lloyd breaks through in the 9th game to take the lead, and she'll be serving for the first set when we come back to Boca West.
Recently, a panel of experts gathered to sample a different kind of pot roast. Upon sampling a bite, they sensed this was no ordinary roast. It's been souped up with Lipton onion soup mix. Lipton's special seasonings and toasted onion pieces make it more delicious. Experts?
Nice onion flavor.
I like it.
Yeah.
The experts agree. Souped up pot roast is simply delicious. Soup up your recipes with Lipton.
Tractors, engines, big computers, airplane parts and motor scooters, call Emery, and it's as good as there. If your shipment's big, Emery's gonna help you make it, 'cause we've got a rig that's sure to take it from the biggest to the smallest. It's as good as there, just call us. It's as good as there.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for me.
Lipton, you made decaffeinated delicious, just for me.
Hey, Lipton, you made decaffeinated just for me.
Great tasting Lipton decaffeinated tea. Real Lipton tea, delicious and decaffeinated, just for you.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for us.
course, if you were with us earlier, you saw the Jimmy Connors debacle from yesterday. Lee Jackson is the women's tournament referee. Lee, has anything like that ever happened in a women's match?
Never to the extent as it did yesterday. Never. We've had disputes, line call disputes, but never more than just a warning, and everybody's relaxed and gone back.
Okay, of course, one of the candidates for trouble on a women's court is Pam Shriver. Lee just told me that. Al, back to you.
That's why she's up here.
Thanks, Al. Thanks.
And we will get into that later. I've got a Pam Shriver story, because I was there in Toronto.
Uh-oh.
Time permitting. Evert Lloyd serving for the set. Pretty long first. Talk about long sets and long matches with Steffi Graf. You know all about that, Pam, from the U.S. Open.
Well, we had a marathon there. We played 3 tie-break sets. I lost 7-6 in the third in about a 2-hour, 50-minute match.
I remember reading your quotes after that. Had to be about as gut-wrenching a loss as you've ever taken.
It was incredible because it was the quarterfinals, and I very much wanted to play Martina in the next round. And also the weather, it was about 10 degrees hotter than this.
Well, in the last 2 games, she's fell apart. That's all there is to it. She's hit quite a few unforced errors. They weren't forced at all.
I think she's starting to feel quite a bit of pressure on her backhand side, and sometimes she's not sure whether or not she should chip it down the line so Chris maybe will hit to hurt Steffi's forehand.
All now. Evert Lloyd ahead 5-4.
And that's her second double fault in the match.
It's good to see Chris take chances like that at 30 all at 5-4. Here's Steffi running wide for a backhand slice. See the racket head, a bit of wiggle in the racket head there.
Set point now for Chris. And a good serve down the middle. Graf hits it out, and Chris Evert Lloyd wins the first set 6-4.
Chris's last 2 serves of that set were the best for her the whole match, which I suppose is a mark of a real champion, to be able to bring out a weapon that ordinarily isn't a weapon.
No, you don't think of it as a weapon, but she has a solid serve, I think. It's the best way to describe it. Solid.
That's what we have coming up for you on Wide World this afternoon. Professional Figure Skating World Challenge of Champions from Paris.
15 love.
And Graf begins set 2 in auspicious fashion with a put away.
Now this is where in Chris's previous matches we've seen her pull away from opponents, and it'll be interesting to see if Steffi can stay with Chris early in the second set. We just saw Stephanie there whack a ball away in disgust. Steffi does have a temper at times.
Yes, I've seen it also.
But she's kept it in check so far this match.
It's natural to let go every once in a while. Just don't take it too far.
30-15. Again, Graf trying to not only beat Chris Evert Lloyd for the first time, she's trying to win a set for the first time against Chris Evert Lloyd. Graf at the age of 16, Chris 31.
And Graf also trying to win her first major tournament.
First tournament, period. She hasn't won any women's tour events, has she?
She won one small satellite tournament a couple of years back.
we mentioned earlier, she also won the Olympic competition.
When you talk about weaknesses in Chris Evert Lloyd's game, there are very few, but one weakness is her approach forehand. And now we see their first serve percentage. Can't get much closer than that.
Nope.
And unforced errors, Graf is way ahead in that, but that goes to show that she's going for her shots, trying to make the winners as well.
40-30. And there's unforced error number 19.
Of course, we've been talking about Steffi Graf's forehand, but Chris Evert Lloyd doesn't have a bad forehand. Graf has squandered 2 game points. Now it's back to deuce.
Who has the most penetrating ground strokes in women's tennis? Not necessarily the hardest, but the most penetrating. And I think of Martina's forehand as being very penetrating, although she doesn't hit it as hard as Chris.
Well, Tracy Austin used to have unbelievably...
Yes, they all thought she had the best groundies.
But I'd say it'd be between Graf, Evert, and Martina.
Chris comes to the net, puts it away, and takes it back to deuce.
Steffi had to run quite a ways to get to Chris's volley there, and it would have been a smart play maybe to throw a lob up into the sky. It's a sunny day, high sky, and Chris's overhead's a nice overhead, but it's not an automatic shot for Chris.
Do you ever get the feeling, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, that Chris just wants to go absolutely bananas on the court every once in a while?
Oh, sure. I kid her all the time because I go bananas a lot, and I see her facial expressions, and I know how she is off the court, and sometimes I just want her to get really mad, just once for me.
And for her.
So it was a struggle, but she holds service. Steffi Graf takes the first game of the second set.
Here's Chris Evert Lloyd.
When I'm working, I make sure I have the best equipment, the best shoes, the best racket, and between sets, the best tasting refreshment I can find. Lipton iced tea mix with NutraSweet. Lipton's a great thirst quencher, and I think its special blend makes it taste best. And out here, anything less than the best just isn't good enough.
February 1986, where we stand. We believe that interest rates will not go up. We believe that the dollar will remain soft. We believe that the stock market will remain strong. As respected advisors to the serious investor, we recommend you reevaluate your investments to ensure they reflect today's forces rather than yesterday's. Shearson Lehman Brothers. Minds over money.
Presenting the delicately seasoned taste of Lipton noodles and sauce Alfredo. Delicately prepared for you by Lipton. So delicious, so simple. Noodles and sauce Alfredo. one of the Lipton side dishes with that delicately seasoned taste.
In Boca Raton, Florida, Al Michaels
Quiet,
with
please.
Arthur Ashe, Pam Schreiber, Al Trautwig. The women's final of the International Players Tennis Championships. Chris Evert Lloyd winning the first set 6-4. Steffi Graf has held serve in the first game of the second set. Chris now serving. And tomorrow, the men's final at 1:30 Eastern Time. Yvonne Lendl against Mats Wilander in the best-of-5 men's final.
15 love.
Again, Chris Evert Lloyd seeking her 144th championship. And Steffi Graf seeking numero uno in terms of major professional titles.
Chris has come to net a few times in the last couple of games. It'll be interesting to see if she continues that because it has worked very well for her.
That ball was good, Steffi.
Chris is giving a look as if Chris is even wondering how this ball is. We see it on the baseline. Again, it looks like it was right on the line, but awfully close.
Chris let that go, and that was within an inch of being in. Look at that unforced errors category. Graf, 12 forehand unforced errors, 8 backhand. Certainly telling the difference right now.
Chris Evert Lloyd's long distinguished career, so many titles and championships and memories, but her most memorable win, even to this day, she says, when she was 16 years old, Graf's age, and she beat then #1 ranked Margaret Court in a small event in North Carolina. I wonder if Graf years from now might, if she wins this one, think in those same terms.
I'm sure she will with a stadium like this.
Game Evert Lloyd, 1-all.
Game apiece now in the second set.
Pam, let me ask you an interesting question. Obviously, men sometimes change shirts 4 and 5 times a match in a day like today. What do the women do? I mean, you obviously get hot and sticky out there, and you want to change your shirt or whatever, but so you just grin and bear it, or what?
Yeah, we stay soggy, Arthur. There's no choice. Actually, a couple of the girls have changed their shirts during matches, but it's been in small satellite tournaments, and I wouldn't particularly want to change my shirt in front of 11,000 people.
Bring it up at the next council meeting, a small changing area.
I have brought it up, actually, because this year at the U.S. Open, when I played Steffi Graf, we both were just dying, and we wanted to change our shirts or skirts, and I actually changed my skirt on the court, but I did it so that
wraparound
yeah.
You can change. That's easy.
Well, this wasn't quite a wraparound, but I did it okay.
15-all.
Here we saw Steffi serve and volley and win the point. Maybe she'll try it again in a couple of points to mix it up so Chris doesn't get grooved and know that Steffi's always going to serve and be at the back of the court.
It's a little bit like Yvonne Lendl in the match against Connors in the first set yesterday. Connors was just so penetrating, couldn't get up there.
15-30.
I get the feeling that Steffi is mentally starting to wear down. That's what it looks like to me, just as an observer.
Well, if she's going to win the match, she's basically got to start all over. She's only got one game on the scoreboard. And so she'd have to come back and win the second set and then a third set. And sometimes that's so much for players to comprehend against Chris.
Yeah.
Oh. Ought to patent that shot.
30 all.
Once again, she stepped around and whacked that forehand. She's never shy on that side,
Nope.
is she?
No.
And that sets up a break point for Evert. And a show of emotion from Graf.
Ooh,
Game
that
is
was close.
She leads 2-1.
Big point.
The crowd seemed to have agreed with that because there were not too many protesters that line called.
Take another look here as Chrissy assumes command of the match now with a break here in the second set, winning the first set 6-4 and leading here in set 2, 2-1.
Are new Lipton International Soup Classics too good?
I had a job interview today, but all I could think of was lobster bisque, one of Lipton's International Soup Classics. So instead of talking salary, I was dreaming of big, succulent chunks of lobster floating in a rich, creamy bisque, delicately seasoned. And when I was asked if I could handle the vice presidency, I said something about the paprika.
New International Soup Classics from Lipton leave a great taste in your mind.
You can't have it all. Who says you can't love your work and the change of pay? Who says you can't have light beer with super premium taste? Michelob Light. Oh, yes, you can. Michelob Light. Oh, yes, you can.
Super premium taste and a less filling beer.
Michelob Light. Oh, yes, you can. Have it all.
The excitement just keeps on rolling on the Professional Bowlers Tour. $125,000 shootout at the St. Louis Open, next on ABC Sports.
Chris Evert Lloyd trying to take home a check for $112,500, winning the International Players Championships. That's what it's worth to the victor. And there, a look at the inductees, the 1986 International Tennis Hall of Fame. And some big names. John Newcomb, Tony Roach. Arthur Ashe, a member of that Hall of Fame.
Yes, I was inducted last year. I had the pleasure yesterday at the press conference announcing these inductees to introduce Chuck McKinley, one of my very first Davis Cup teammates in 1963, and Tony Roach. Tony Roach and I won the Australian doubles in '77, but his more famous partner is John Newcomb, who's also an inductee this year.
Chris starting to take a hold of the second set. She's up 2-1, 30 love. And Steffi right now should take her time. She shouldn't rush in between points. She should get herself back together and make another stab at this set.
I suppose it's points like that that proves to Chrissy, to herself, that maybe I should not come to the net as often as I do, but she's usually very successful there. Watch Steffi whacking the ball down the line. Chris can't quite get it. Actually hits herself on the shoulder. That's a good word for her forehand. And she whacks the ball.
Sure does.
So commenting about speed around the court as far as Chris being in position, who is the fastest women's player on the tour, just in terms of sheer foot speed?
Martina. But Chris is a close second, and Hanna Malikova is also very fast.
Deceptively so, then.
Steffi's missing a lot of shots by not a whole lot. Maybe she's lost a little bit of confidence. But I think the key would be for her to take her time. Here we see Steffi's shot landing about an inch over the baseline.
It did look a little out.
But now we see her back there toweling off the back of the court. That's good. Take your time. You have 30 seconds in between points. If the match is starting to slip away, take a few deep breaths in between points.
It'll really slip away if she doesn't hold service here. Evert Lloyd leading 3-1. What do you see Chris Evert Lloyd doing after she retires from playing tennis?
Well, obviously she's got a great-looking husband. She's going to hopefully have a few kids, and she'll stay involved with tennis somehow.
And how much longer will she play? She's evasive every time she answers that question.
She sure is, and every time I talk to her, it seems to get farther and farther away, which is very discouraging for the rest of us. Last time I read, I think she was going to play another 3 to 5 years, but I hope it's going to be like 1 or 2 years.
That's good.
Beautiful shot.
Well, Billie Jean showed that it could be done if you took care of yourself. Of course, she had about 6 or so knee operations, and Chris Evert's not in that situation. And here, Chris Evert goes on the line, but then she doesn't really cover that.
Well,
so she was passed down the line.
Talk about Chris and what she's going to do after tennis. I think she'll stay involved mainly because she is so involved right now in tennis. Not only is she a tremendous player, but she's also president of our Women's Tennis Association, which she's served for 3 or 4 terms as president.
Oh, I was waiting for a Yannick Noah between the legs shot there, but too much.
Here's John Lloyd. He never shows much emotion during the matches. Here, Chris shows quite a good bit of touch there with that drop volley, and then a neck cord, and she gets her racket head up and plays a lob volley over Steffi's head. That just goes to show that Chris Evert Lloyd is a tremendous athlete. Chris Evert Lloyd has been to the net 7 times, won 5 of the points. Steffi's only been to the net twice.
Can't get there.
That's true. But she's also lost both. Maybe she's a little discouraged. But she still has a point for 3-2.
interesting how Jimmy Connors, about 3 months ago, said in Tennis Magazine that there were 2 sets of rules, he thought, for top players who were treated a bit more leniently than the other players. Do you think that's true of the women? Do the women think that Chris and Martina and you are treated differently?
Well, I don't think I'm treated any differently, but I think the champions always tend to get maybe a couple of calls throughout the year. But it's sort of like in boxing. If you're going to beat the champion, you've got to really beat them, and you have to face maybe the odd bad call. But I don't think it's on purpose. I just think someone like Chris commands the odd good call. Graf's a little dejected because after every long point that she takes the ball from her left hand and slams it around somewhere. It's interesting because Steffi Graf and Gabriella Sabatini, the 2 youngest players in the top 15, are also the only 2 players that hold 2 balls in their hand when they serve.
Which I think is nutty.
Yeah, it sort of restricts you quite a bit, especially on the backhand side.
Of course, they both hit their backhands with one hand, but still it's nutty to have a ball in your hand. That was out. Just
Graf is in deep trouble right now. 4-1 Evert Lloyd, and we'll be back with more of the International Players Tennis Championships after this word from your local station.
On the Disney Sunday movie, find the American dream in The Girl Who Spelled Freedom.
What? I have a small business problem. My brother-in-law, Milton, couldn't sell tea in China. So I called the small business experts at AT&T, and they showed us new ways to use long distance to open a whole new territory. What'd you sell today, Milton?
6,000 switches.
Check the inventory. I have a small business problem.
Call AT&T Long Distance Services. We can help. AT&T, the right choice.
Oh, you're still working. I can come back. Is it morning already? You know, he'd be home by now if he had the new NCR PC6. It's nearly twice as fast as the IBM PC. And look, a brighter, sharper screen. And it's still compatible? Oh, naturellement. Are you surprised? Nope, NCR's made top computers for years. You mean you're not a little bit surprised? We'll take it. Oof, I'm proud of you.
A better computer. It's exactly what you'd expect from NCR. Behind the scenes of Crossings, this week at 11.
Challenge of Champions, men's and ladies competition, and you will see Scott Hamilton, Robin Cousins, Dorothy Hamill, Rosalind Sumner among those competing today on ABC's Live World of Sports, 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, 3:30 Central. That's our headline attraction on Wide World coming up later.
I met Scott Hamilton the other day, Alan. I was about a foot taller than him. But he's sure a tremendous skater.
Steffi Graf trailing here.
No 15.
Evert Lloyd ahead 4-1 in the second set.
When you get to this stage with Chris, you're down a set, 4-1. In front of you, you see the biggest mountain you've ever seen. You just wonder how in the world you can climb it.
Move the mountain. Retire.
Build a tunnel.
You think Steffi's playing too fast?
She always plays fast. And as I said earlier, she should take a little bit more time.
I think she should walk around in circles and do something to break up Chrissy's rhythm. That is a tendency, though, in young players to just play very quickly.
Going very much according to form. Pam mentioned earlier how Chris was having some struggles of sorts in the first sets of the prior matches, and then the second sets have been runaways, and the same pattern being exhibited here today. 6-4 in the first set, but she leads 4-1 here in the second. By any chance, is Steffi Graf superstitious, Pam? She's wearing something above her watch. She's obviously wearing a watch, but she's wearing something above her watch. As we watch that split screen retype of that last attempt by Graf, couldn't quite get to it.
I don't know that she is superstitious. I don't really know Steffi that well personally.
40-30. Does she pretty much stick to herself? She travels with either her mother or her father, and her father is here today watching.
Sure, she travels with both her parents, one or both, and she also has a traveling partner, coach. And we see unforced errors. Steffi's all the way up to 31. Chris only has 13.
So Evert Lloyd is now one game away from pocketing a six-figure check and winning this tournament. And let's get a word with Al Crowley.
Al, I'm sitting in the stands with perhaps the hottest player right now on the men's tour, aside from Yvonne. That's Brad Gilbert, who beat John McEnroe at the Nabisco Masters, and now gets ready for the Davis Cup. Brad, why has your success been so immediate?
Well, I got in a good run and started to serve a little better and got a few breaks. Sometimes it's all it takes, a little break.
And Ecuador is going to be hot, very much like it is here with the Davis Cup tie.
Yeah, this is going to feel pretty cool compared to Ecuador. It's going to be about 110 down there, so I'm going to bring a lot of shirts, and hopefully we're going to play well down there, bring the tie back home to the United States.
Okay, with Edberg's withdrawal, Brad Gilbert and Vincent Van Patten are the doubles champions here at Boca. Back to you, Al.
Talk about needing breaks. Steffi Graf needs a whole bunch of them right now.
She needs more than one.
But this is all a learning process for Steffi. She's going to be around for so many years and playing so many finals.
You know she's 15, and the last U.S. Open, the Women's Tennis Association and the Association of Tennis Professionals and Men's Group agreed with the new ruling about limiting the number of tournaments for players at certain ages. Do you agree with that, Pam? We get into that when we get a chance? Because certainly Steffi is a prime example of the need for such a rule, or the lack of a need for such a rule.
As I said earlier, Steffi has taken off from the tour since late October, and she only has 12 tournaments in a whole year, which isn't an awful lot. I think parents, coaches, the agents are much more conscious right now of making sure young players are brought on slowly because of what happened to Tracy and Andrea.
Oh, not enough luck. I would add the family doctor.
Yeah.
Whom I think in many instances is just not forceful enough.
Well, I think more than the physical strain, it's actually the mental strain. It's just such a tough life to be away from home at such a young age. You just need to take your time. There's no rush.
Oh, what a shot.
40-30.
40-30.
We'll see here Chris hit a forehand, and you can see her just pull across the ball and just fire it back cross court for the winner.
And that's out, and so Graf stays alive, just barely though. Evert Lloyd will be serving for the match when we come back.
Evert Lloyd leads 5-2.
In rooms like this, decisions are made. Sometimes they decide on a computer company. These decisions add up. Sperry now has the second largest installed base of computer systems in the world. What does that mean today? It means $17 billion worth of decisions won't come back to haunt this place tomorrow.
Chrysler LeBaron GTS challenges BMW 528E and Mercedes 190E to a test of performance. Overall, America's GTS dominates the legendary Germans and is under $12,000. LeBaron GTS, we built an American hero.
Now get low financing or $500 to $1,000 back on select Chrysler Plymouth models.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for me.
Here comes great taste. Lipton decaffeinated iced tea. Delicious.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for me.
Pour yourself the taste you'll love. The refreshing taste of Lipton decaffeinated iced tea. It's so good.
Ooh, Lipton tea you made, decaffeinated just for us.
Lipton decaffeinated tea.
Last year in the semifinals in this tournament, Chris Evert Lloyd beat Steffi Graf 6-4, 6-2 to advance to the final, which she subsequently lost to Navratilova. Now she's trying to beat Graf by the same score again today for the title. Permitting, at the end of this match, we can show you at least a part of what took place yesterday in the Jimmy Connors Yvonne Lendl semifinal, which ended with a victory by Lendl under relatively bizarre circumstances.
That I'm a little surprised at today is how much Steffi Graf is coming over her backhand side. She used to always slice the ball, and now she's got a pretty good drive backhand, although against Chris it's a little bit negated because Chris can just get back so many balls. But Steffi's got a lot of shots, and I'm just thinking about myself in the future when I play her. I'm going to be in some trouble. I think this is about the hardest hitting baseline match that I've seen in women's tennis in a long time. Both girls are just slugging it out. The pace is
torrid.
Yeah.
Sets up double championship point for Chris Evert Lloyd.
That is some record for a professional tennis player in the Open era. Just an incredible performance.
So one match point, one championship point saved. 40-30. Out, and so Chris Evert Lloyd wins her 144th professional title, wins $112,500, and does it in her hometown as she becomes the champion in the second International Players Championships in Boca Raton, Florida. 6-4, 6-2. Chris Evert Lloyd, the winner over Steffi Graf, and we'll be back to speak with Chris when we return after this.
The International Players Tennis Championships are being brought to you by Lipton Long Grain and Wild Rice. 4 delicious new side dishes with that delicately seasoned taste. By Adidas, the world's largest manufacturer of athletic footwear and apparel. And by Lipton decaffeinated tea bags. Delicious and decaffeinated just for you.
Introducing the delicately seasoned taste of new Lipton long grain and wild rice with mushrooms and herbs. One of 4 new varieties of long grain and wild rice with all the flavor you expect from Lipton. Simmered inside for that delicately seasoned taste. So easy. New Lipton long grain and wild rice. That delicately seasoned taste.
Managing the largest common stock offering ever. Completing the largest corporate restructuring ever. Creating the first money market preferred stock ever. Developing the first acknowledged bond index ever. It seems that whenever there's a first ever, it bears the stamp of Shearson Lehman Brothers. Minds over money.
This tournament, 2 weeks long, Chris Evert Lloyd did not lose a set and winds up winning, beating Steffi Graf in the final today, 6-4, 6-2. Let's join Al Troutwig.
Okay, Al, of course, this was a day of great expectations for Steffi Graf. And Steffi, when the match started, you looked very good, and then suddenly Chris seemed to take control.
Well, she was missing at the beginning some more, and at the end she just didn't make any errors, so it was hard to do anything against her.
Now, this is the 6th time you've reached a final. Hopefully you've learned a little bit each time. What do you think you learned today about pressure and playing in a final?
Well, I mean, I've never been in such a big tournament in the final, so I think it was great, and I think it was a good experience for me.
You feel disappointment, or you're satisfied with what you were able to do today?
Well, I think I'm satisfied the whole tournament over, and probably today it's tough to play against her, so I think it was great.
Congratulations. A lot of women are scared of that forehand of yours. And now, of course, to the champion, Chris Evert Lloyd. Chris, another victory in Florida, another 2-week tournament where you didn't have a Saturday off, you had to play. Was it a slow start in the beginning, or were you a little bit nervous, or was Steffi just really powerful?
Well, I think I started out a little bit slowly, but a little tentatively, but Steffi just came out really roaring, and she just hit so many winners off her forehand. I think she missed 1 or 2 forehands, and she has such a great weapon there that it kind of threw me off guard. I wasn't used to it. So it was a combination. She played real well, and then at 4-all, that was a big game, and I think I played a very good game there. And then the second set, I started hitting out and matching her ground with.
Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver said they hadn't seen such a powerful baseline match in a long, long time. You were slugging it out there.
Well, I haven't played anybody like that in such a long time. I mean, Tracy Austin used to hit like that, so I think Steffi really's got a great forehand there. And in the second set, we both started hitting hard. In the first set, she was hitting hard. The second set, we both did. So I'm happy about the outcome.
Okay, congratulations to Chris Evert Lloyd. It's suddenly very quiet here, and I guess that means I have to go back to Al Michaels. Al?
Yes, thank you, Al. Chris Evert Lloyd, unbeaten now in 1986. She is 12-0 and has won this tournament. And in just a moment, we'll be back. We'll have highlights of yesterday's Wendell Connors semifinal.
This winter, escape. Come to where you can bask in the warmth that winter makes you hungry for. Where the pleasure is so real, you can taste it. Come to Lipton Hearty Soups. Great tasting getaways where you can wrap your winter appetite in extra hearty noodles. Dive into rich, thick broth. Luxuriate in the great taste of Lipton.
This hearty soup is just a ticket.
Come to where it's warm and wonderful. Come to Lipton Hearty Soups.
This commercial is recorded in stereo. Does your TV have what it takes to hear it? Now Zenith introduces the Smart Sets with the television stereo sound Zenith invented, built in. So all you have to do to hear this in stereo is this. Zenith Advanced System 3, 19 models with built-in stereo. The Smart Sets, smarter than ever.
A serious player has a look all his own. The Wendell Collection. Only from Adidas.
Come, drink in the enchantment of Lipton Amaretto tea. Amaretto, the taste of golden almonds, star anise, and a luscious blend of teas. Lipton Amaretto, one of the very special teas from Lipton.
You are what you eat, so you better eat light. Wishbone Light. It's light on oil, but with a full, fresh taste. You are what you eat, so you better eat light. Wishbone Light.
The award ceremony now taking place here at Boca West in Boca Raton, Florida. Chris Evert Lloyd addressing the crowd.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Lipton for being the overall sponsor, Jerry Boyks. I feel real honored because I do some commercials for them, so I'm very excited that they're involved with this tournament, and thank you for being involved in tennis in general. Butch Buchholz, thank you very much for doing a great job with the tournament. The scheduling and organization was very good. Also, there's so many sponsors to thank, so I have to read them off the court. But I think Shearson Lehman Brothers, especially, I'd like to thank you. And Virginia Slims has been our overall sponsor in women's tennis, so I'd like to thank them. As far as the match, I think I'd like to say congratulations to Steffi for having a great tournament. She really started out so tough in that.
So the awards ceremony continues. Meanwhile, we have some time because of the length of this match to show you at least a bit of yesterday's Wendell Connors confrontation. We're going to pick it up in the fifth set, tied 2 sets apiece in the 6th game, the way Arthur Ashe and I called it yesterday.